Bloom, and it says in remarriage of Depp. Do you see that? Yes. It's addressed to Jacob Bloom, Samantha Spector, and it says in remarriage of Depp. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and it's from Samantha Spector, who indicates she's representing Amber Heard. As of the time of this letter, had you made known to Amber Heard or Ms. Spector or anyone else related to them that you represented Mr. Depp?
I don't believe so.
Did you receive a copy of this letter from someone?
I believe so. I think I've seen it before, so yes.
Did you receive this letter on or around May 24, 2016?
Okay, next page, please. Hang on. Yes.
Do you have any communications with Samantha Spector in connection with this letter?
Yes.
And when you say within days, could it have been the same day, May 24th, the next day, 25th?
Possibly.
I'm going to direct your attention to the next paragraph. It says, to this end, please have Johnny promptly sign and return by Friday, May 27, 2016, the enclosed notice of acknowledgement receipt form, confirming service of the summons, petition, law, case cover sheet, and blank response. Did you do that? No, I understand it, but it was given to you, correct?
I believe so.
And you were representing Mr. Depp, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Bloom did not represent Mr. Depp in connection with the divorce, correct?
Correct.
So once Mr. Bloom gave this to you, then did you represent Mr. Depp going forward in communications with Samantha Spector?
Once we received this letter, our firm took over with representation of Mr. Depp in the dissolution action. I cannot recall whether or not the request made was done by Friday, May 27th, but I believe that it was. Probably have that notice and acknowledgement of receipt somewhere with a date on it.
Now, the next section, I think, is something that you referred to earlier. It said, in addition, we are requesting on Amber's behalf the following, and it says appropriate pendente light support. Did you have any understanding of what that amount might be at the time that you saw this letter?
I did not have an understanding of what appropriate pendente lite support would be at that time.
Did you ask Samantha Spector?
I don't recall. I don't recall our specific communications regarding her requests.
Do you recall making any kind of counter to any of these items?
All I recall is that without any notice to us, at 8:30 in the morning on the 27th, Samantha Spector and her client went into court and obtained a no-notice ex parte restraining order.
Had you had any communication with Samantha Spector prior to her going into court on that Friday, May 27th?
Yes.
How many communications had you had with Ms. Spector following getting this letter and prior to her going into court at 8:30 on May 27, 2016?
I do not recall.
Do you have a recollection of whether any of the communications that you had with Ms. Spector between the receipt of this letter that's dated May 24, 2016, and Ms. Spector going into court on Friday, May 27, 2016, related in any way to requests on your behalf, on behalf of your client that you made?
No.
You recall having communications with Samantha Spector between May 24 and May 27. You can't recall how many, and you can't recall the specifics of those communications. Is that accurate?
It's not accurate.
And in what way? Please tell me.
I recall that we had communications between the 24th and probably the 26th. I doubt we spoke on the morning of the 27th before she went into court. I do not know the content of those communications, and I do not know how many communications were had.
Now, on the next paragraph, it has a proposal for private retired judicial officers. Ultimately, did you and Ms. Spector talk about using private retired judicial officers, whether it was the list she provided or any others?
I believe so, yes.
And what do you recall?
My recollection is that is in almost all of our cases, certainly those with high-profile clients, we would have liked to take it out of the system. Ms. Spector was not willing to do that with this case.
What do you recall Ms. Spector saying to indicate that she did not want to take it out of the public spectrum?
I don't recall her saying anything.
Okay. Now, after your understanding was that a CLETS DVTRO was in fact obtained on Friday, May 27, 2016 by Ms. Heard against Mr. Depp, correct?
That is my understanding.
After that, did there come a time that you or anyone at your law firm communicated with the Eastern Columbia Building concierge staff or management?
Was those the downtown lofts?
The penthouse lofts, yes. And if it's easier for you, everyone's been referring to the Eastern Columbia Building as ECB. Would that be helpful at all?
Sure.
Or we can, if you prefer to call them the penthouse loft building, that's fine too.
Now that we've identified them, I understand what you're talking about. We can call them whatever you'd like. Did someone from my firm speak with somebody at those buildings? Yes.
And who from your firm spoke with someone at the buildings and when?
I believe either I did or my partner Samantha Klein or an associate who was also working on the case, Lisa Sutton from our firm. We also had co-counsel on the case. They may have been involved. As to when, I have to imagine it was sometime in June or July of 2016.
No, you indicated either you or Samantha Klein or Lisa Sutton, and you also had co-counsel. Do you have a specific recollection of speaking with anyone at the ECB building?
I don't.
What were Samantha Klein's communications with the ECB building?
I don't know.
What were Samantha Klein's communication with the ECD building?
Okay.
And her answer was, I don't know.
Thank you. What were Lisa Sutton's communications with the ECB building?
I don't know.
What were your co-counsel's communications with the ECB building? And when I say ECB building, I'm not talking about the structure. I'm talking about the individuals who worked there. And just so we're clear here, you don't recall any communications with the ECB building staff as well, correct?
You asked me if I had a specific recollection. I do not.
Do you have a general recollection?
I believe that at some point we subpoenaed the building's records of the video from the lobby and elevator areas. So I would imagine that the communications would have to do with those subpoenas.
Are you able to testify to any conversation you or anyone at your firm or your co-counsel had with the ECB building staff?
I am sure that there were conversations and communications regarding the production of the subpoenaed documents, review of the subpoenaed documents, their compliance with, I believe it was Ms. Spector's subpoena, coordination of same, but I don't have a specific recollection of any communications.
Are you able to speak to whether there were any conversations between you, anyone at your law firm or your co-counsel, and ECB building personnel prior to your issuing the subpoena?
Also, I don't believe that the subpoena was issued by our firm. As you said.
So you don't have a recollection of a subpoena being issued on Mr. Depp's behalf for the ECB building surveillance tapes?
I don't know. I know there was one issued. I believe it was issued by Ms. Spector.
Let's talk about the videos that you just referred to from the ECB building staff. How did you and your firm or your co-counsel receive these videos?
I don't recall. I would imagine like a e-file or something like that.
Now, is it your recollection that there was just one e-file that contained all of the surveillance tapes?
I don't have a recollection as to whether it was 1 or 7 or what. I just don't know.
When you were talking about receiving the video surveillance footage on whatever, whether it was 1 file or 7 files, whether it was e-file or whatever, did you have any understanding that you were not provided the full amount that was requested, whatever the amount was?
No.
So you thought you received whatever you were supposed to receive, is that fair?
Yes.
What did you do with the actual surveillance video footage that you received?
I believe we kept it on the computer at least for the next couple of months in preparation for trial. I don't know where it is now.
That's my next question. Is there a time that you no longer possessed the video surveillance footage that was sent to you by the ECB building?
I don't know.
Ms. Wasser, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Wasser Deposition Exhibit number 2. What? And it's a multi-page document. And so I'm going to scroll down a little bit, but you let me know if I'm going too fast here. It's dated June 3rd. And it's to Samantha Klein. She was working with you on the Depp case, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's from Samantha Spector, which you can see there, and we'll show you the signature later. And it's litigation hold preservation of information, including not limited to electronically stored information. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you recall receiving this letter? And if you want me to scroll down and let you read each page, I'm happy to do that first.
I'm familiar with this letter. I recall receiving it.
And did you receive this letter before you received the surveillance footage from the ECB building?
I am not sure.
Well, I think you had indicated that you thought that it was in June or July that you received the surveillance footage. Is that still your best recollection?
Looking at the date and knowing the chronology of the case, it is my best estimate that we received this letter prior to the time that we received the video footage.
Ms. Wasser, what steps did you and your firm and co-counsel take to preserve the surveillance video footage of ECB from the time you received it going forward?
I think the absence of us doing anything to destroy the video footage would be the most I could testify regarding in terms of steps that we took to preserve the video footage.
Are you aware of any destruction of the video footage, the surveillance video footage from ECB up to the present?
No, we probably still have it.
Have you looked for it?
No.
Have you been asked to look for it?
No.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has now been marked as Watson Deposition Exhibit number 3, and it's dated June 6, 2013, addressed to you, and it's from Charles Carter. Did you have an understanding that Mr. Carter also represented Amber Heard?
I did when I received this letter on June 6th.
Okay. And did you have an understanding that Mr. Carter was also asking you to preserve any evidence?
Yes.
Ms. Wasser, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Wasser Deposition, and you are acknowledging receipt of the preservation demand letter from Ms. Heard as well as his, and you indicated we are fully aware of our obligations with respect to the preservation of evidence. Please rest assured that we intend to comply with the preservation demand and expect that Ms. Heard will do so as well. Do you recall saying that in this letter?
Yes.
And was this letter, in fact, from you to Mr. Harder?
It was.
Ms. Wasser, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Wasser Deposition Exhibit number 5. It's a letter dated June 21, 2016 to Samantha Spector, Charles Carter, and Leonard Levine, I think it's pronounced, remarriage of Depp. And it's from Samantha Klein. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And you are copied on it. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. And Ms. Klein worked with your law firm?
Yes.
And represented Mr. Depp as well? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to go back up to the beginning to call your attention to a particular section. It says, this letter shall confirm the agreements we reached yesterday with respect to the pending domestic violence proceeding. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go down to the media, press, and it says, neither party nor his or her respective counsel, representatives, or agents shall make any comments in the media or press pertaining to this dissolution action, the civil action pending against Judge Spinoza, and or any pending or future litigation between or involving the parties. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. Does that accurately reflect the agreement that was made between?
Yes.
Did you know Liz Walters?
Who?
Liz Walters?
Yes.
And who is she?
She is a reporter.
For?
I believe she works for her brother's online media outlet called The Blast.
Did you have any communications with Liz Walters during the Depp-Heard divorce?
I don't recall.
Did you have any communications with TMZ relating to the Depp-Heard divorce?
I don't recall.
Now, do you recall what the date was for the permanent TRO, temporary restraining order? Do you recall the date that you said that early on, 21 days after the temporary restraining order is typically the date that's set for the hearing for the defendant if they want to come in and oppose it, or if the petitioner wants to extend it? Do you recall what the first date was?
I don't, but I would imagine it was probably at some point in early June.
All right. And then do you recall that date being continued?
I do.
How many times?
At least twice, possibly 3 times. I think that the final date was at some point in August, and we settled right before then.
All right. Alan, can we bring up document number 7? Thank you, Alan. Ms. Wasser, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Wasser Exhibit number 7. It is dated August 5, 2016. It is to you from Samantha Spector. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you recall, did you receive this document?
Doesn't it say at the top that it's protected under 1152?
It sure does. All I'm asking you is whether you received it. I'm not asking you about the substance.
I don't remember.
Do you have any reason to believe you did not receive it?
I don't.
Wasser, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Wasser's deposition exhibit number 8. And it starts out with an email from Samantha Spector to Amber on August 6, 2016. Do you recall what was going on or around August 16 in divorce, in connection with the divorce?
Not specifically, no.
Do you know who Christian Carino is?
I do.
Okay, who is he?
He's an agent at a creative artist agency.
How long have you known Christian Carino?
I've known of Christian for maybe 10 years.
Were you aware that Mr. Carino was involved in organizing, if you will, or assisting Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard with their own meeting to try to resolve their case up in San Francisco?
Possibly. That sounds vaguely familiar.
Were you on the telephone at any point while Amber Heard and Johnny Depp were meeting to discuss attempted resolution of the issues during the summer of 2016?
What was your question? Was I on the telephone?
Yes. Were you on the telephone where Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were in the hotel room and were talking?
No.
Were you ever on the telephone when Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp were together talking during the summer of 2016, no matter where they were?
On the telephone?
Yes.
No.
While he was with Ms. Heard and Ms. Heard was on speaker, and you were on speakerphone with the two of them?
No.
You recognize the name of the this here.
Do you recognize the name on what?
Joe Sweeney.
I do.
And who was he?
Joe Sweeney is a forensic accountant who specializes in family law forensic accounting, and he was Ms. Heard's forensic accountant in the Disso matter.
And was Edward White acting as the forensic accountant for Mr. Depp?
No.
Did Mr. White provide the documentation that was then submitted to Samantha Spector as counsel for Ms. Heard?
I believe it came from Mr. White's office. Also probably of note is the fact that Mr. Depp changed business management shortly before or during the course of the case, so it is possible that some of the documents came from predecessor business manager.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Wasser Deposition Exhibit number 10, and I'm not going to ask you any specific questions, so I don't need you to have to review it in detail unless you'd like to. You're certainly welcome to spend as much time as you'd like on it, but I'm just going to go down to the end of it, and I'm going to ask if this is the deal point memorandum that you referred to that was finalized on August 15, 2016.
Since the parties' signatures appear at the bottom, as well as Ms. Spector's and mine, I believe that this is the deal point.
That it is not the final deal point memorandum.
No.
Ms. Wasser, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Wasser Deposition Exhibit number 11. And it's a series of documents. An FL-150, for example, and then that's page 404, and then it goes into the next part, 1 of 1. Just try to page through it for you just so you can see generally. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Could you tell me what it is, please?
It looks to be one of the parties, I guess Mr. Depp's, what we call in California, preliminary or perhaps final declaration of disclosure. It's just financial disclosure forms.
Ms. Wasser, I'm going to ask you if you can take a look at what has been marked as Wasser Exhibit number 12. And it's a many pages. I think it's 50 total. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Can you tell me what it is?
It's parties' related judgment for dissolution of marriage.
Is there a specific amount that was paid to Amber Heard as part of this divorce settlement and judgment for
objection document? I'm sorry.
For her claims of domestic violence, including any claims of assault, battery, intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress, libel, slander, and or defamation?
I don't believe that we segregated out what the total amount was being paid for.
Did you make any effort to seal, S-E-A-L, the records in this case, and I'm referring to the case in front of us, the marriage or partnership of Amber Laura Depp and John Christopher Depp II, filed in Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles.
When you say sealed, do you mean by the court, to ask the court to seal the file?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
And why not?
We don't do that.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 13. And this is a subpoena of you for this deposition. Did you receive that? Do you want me to scroll through it? Would you like to?
No, I believe that we received it.
All right. And you are testifying pursuant to this subpoena, correct?
I am.
I'm going to ask you to look at what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 14. And this is for the corporate designee of Wasser, Cooperman, and Mandos. You see that?
I do.
For today's deposition. Is it your understanding that you are the corporate designee on behalf of Wasser, Cooperman, and Mandos speaking today?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think given the hour, that'll be all the testimony that you hear today, okay? So we'll go ahead and recess for the day. Make sure you don't do any outside research and don't talk to anybody, and we'll see you tomorrow, okay? Get some good rest, all right? Thank you. Okay. And tomorrow, then, we'll be starting with that other deposition. That's correct? And how long is that, or approximately? About 2.5 hours. So that'll take care of the morning, probably, for the most part. And then you have remote witnesses after that, is that correct? Okay, so you can get me the contact information for those so we can get that taken care of. All right, just remember, we do plan accordingly, because I do need to take a lunch between 1:30 and 2:30, because there's a graduation I have to speak at, so we're going to take care of that, okay? All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Rotten bum.